Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. It's been a couple of months since the last Adderall abuse drama, and it's back on the menu today with Methodz revealing that he used it for the only time in his professional career last year in a league matchup against OpTic Texas, got absolutely fried and decided never again. But how many pro players are using it week in, week out, especially the amount of prescriptions these players seem to have according to Methodz? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thought this is cool from True Tyler here. Absolute nightmare fuel, says Crimsex. Also wanted to talk briefly about the elite qualifiers. We saw Doug and Co qualified just yesterday, or I guess the day before yesterday. We discussed it yesterday. And Major Maniac and Co, Major, Standy, Wardy and Johnny all out of the tournament as well, losing last night. I know that there was some discussion as to whether Major and Standy should have teamed with different players. Like, look, this team's got good gun skill, but the brain isn't necessarily there. Gunsy manages to win going double negative, and I know people were watching this thinking, damn, like what was actually going on here? So yeah, Standy, despite I guess he decided to play challenges as with Major for the meantime, because we still think Standy might have offers in the CDL, but if he had taken one, then I guess he'd have been dipping from his challengers team quickly to go and practice for those guys. So maybe he's still got to think things through, or maybe those teams have decided, you know what, after Standy failed to qualify for this, we don't want you anymore type thing. Also with some drama because Cruz, who took down Standy in that match we just saw, then went on to lose to Spart's team, who ended up qualifying, and he actually called them out for breaking gentlemen's agreements. They lost map 1, and then they pulled out tuned barrel subs and fast triggers on the pistols after getting smoked map 1, whatever it takes, I guess. So yeah, this is the thing with gentlemen's agreements, that when, well, backs are against the wall, and when things matter a lot, because qualifying for the elite is a pretty big deal, because those are really the top couple of players that if pro teams do want to sign challenger players, they'll usually look to the elite first, and the stats for those players in the elite, stuff like this. So qualifying is quite a big deal, and yeah, maybe not a massive surprise that players are going to break GAs to get there. Okay, it's not particularly ethical, you could argue, that gentlemen's agreement is getting broken in this way. Cruz all snappy about it, but he did say, well, like, wasn't the reason why we lost. We lost because we just played badly. But nonetheless, right, pretty spicy stuff. And we get the same story in a way in the Pro League. Not exactly on quite this level, but we saw right in the comeback Vegas versus Thieves, when push comes to shove and there's an important situation on the line, someone might pop a stair glitch, right? It might well happen, and you can maybe understand why in certain senses. Well, obviously that circumstance was because Octane did it early on, all that drama, but you get the point that I'm trying to make there. Spart's team was ProLoot, Spart, Neptune and Mohawk with Coach Fader. They managed to qualify, so pretty good team. Mohawk, of course, back in business, team with a good team, and that those guys are back in, so definitely some Pro League caliber players. All of these guys have been in the league before, of course, apart from Mohawk, but he's had offers at some time in the past as well. Also, let's talk Expo. So the question is Expo going to come into the map pool? Is Fortress Control gone at what's going on? Because the game is still broken. It's a week today the league matches restart, and therefore we're thinking, well, are they going to fix the game, right? Are we in a good position to actually run it back and change out Fortress Control, or what exactly is going on here? But JoeDeceives reckons there's a vote pending about bringing Expo Search and Destroy into the map pool. So if this is the case, then surely Expo Control is already going to be in, because like Expo Control is, according to most people, far better than Fortress could ever hope to be. So that's like a guarantee when it's playable. The issue is though, right now the pros are still playing on the old patch update and they can't play it. And maybe because they actually do practice hardpoint and control day in, day out, they're still playing some Fortress Control out now in practice, and whether it comes in for Control Expo, I don't know. It will come in at some point, I'm pretty confident, but you know, they need to get it sorted by Monday, I would say, in order for the CDL to actually update their map set. But yeah, it's probably not going to happen, thanks to Infinity Ward. Lovely stuff. So the Search and Destroy, though, is where the questions are now arising as to whether it could come into the search map pool instead. I doubted this would happen, just because certain teams like certain maps over others, right? And you can see what Ben's getting at here. So the vote is between either Mikado should go or Fortress should go. Now, whether they can agree, like probably what they need is 9 of the 12 teams to agree to one of these to be gone instead of Expo, and Expo will come in instead. However, if you look at the records, of course, on those two respective maps, Legion are very good at Fortress, 8-1 overall. Yes, they lost the last time they played to Boston, but still they were 8-0 before that. Surge are bad at both, technically, as are Rokkr. But there's quite a few teams here that are pretty good at Fortress and maybe not so much at Mikado. There's only a couple of those, but you might think that if that was the case, they might say, well, we want to keep Fortress in. Even if Fortress is the worst map for Search and Destroy than Mikado, which I believe it probably is. I think Mikado Search is probably better in my opinion. It's kind of marginal, but I would prefer to keep Mikado than I would to keep Fortress. But if teams like Legion are going to disagree, which they might do, and if they have some support on that, then is Expo going to come in? Probably not. Even if Expo is better than both of these maps, which it probably is, the teams have to agree, which is where the issues arise. But even Scrappy says in replies before this got deleted, voting in a map we can't even play yet, nice stuff. So he's not happy with it, and he probably doesn't want that to be the case either. So pretty interesting. Hopefully Infinity War can just fix their game. The pros can play on the new patch update, and therefore this can all get resolved amicably. Let's talk about the Adderall stuff then. So this is a topic every couple of months in the scene, and actually it came up quite recently on an episode of Nadeshot's podcast here, where he discusses the issue with it in esports in general, and says how Huke, of course, this is the famous example, when Huke made that video in like June 2021 or whenever it was, I think like May, June 2021, when he admitted that he used Adderall during their World Championship winning run on Dallas Empire back in 2020. He then got off it, felt way better inside and outside of the game, and as Nadeshot says here, he's the definition of someone that doesn't need it to perform at a high level. But, you know, the discussion has been around it in the competitive community for years, decades really, that, you know, it's what you need to play at a high level. That is not the reality, according to a lot of the pro players, and, you know, obviously prescriptions are rife in the scene, so stopping players using it is pretty challenging, it seems. The way to stop it, and to limit some of the potentially disastrous health consequences it can have that Huke talked about in that video, is to change the narrative around it, that players don't actually need it, whereas right now a lot of people think that they do. And Doug actually doubles down on this. I was kind of waiting for an optimal moment to discuss this, but as Doug says, Adderall is not needed to play COD and win at the highest level. I'm 28 years old, won all my championships, never taking it. If you're an expiring COD pro, stay clean, don't take any shortcuts. It can ruin your life. And, you know, it's not a good chemical, and that's what Huke was getting at the time as well. So now this comes to the present day, or just a couple of days ago, the guys on the Flycast recorded this episode. I listen to the Flycast every so often. I thought this was a really good episode. They were discussing it. And, well, Hitch for the first part of the episode was saying, oh yeah, Zinni, I know that he's never used it in his career, but most of the other pro players have. And then Methodz came on to say, well, actually, yeah, I kind of did use it one time last year. So there was one match that he used in his professional career. He mentions, I'll share the other clip from him on stream afterwards, so he says, yeah, like, I've used it before in my life and I've got a prescription for it, but, you know, for this in professional match play, this is the only time he's used it in an actual game, and it was in Vanguard. They played OpTic Texas. I believe they won the series in the end, we'll see in a second, but he got fried at game 1 Gavutu, and he tried to slap himself, you know, out of it game 2, and decided, yeah, I'm never going near that again, because it's not just this magic pill that will make you absolutely fry no matter who you are.
Can I ask you one question for the Flycast real quick?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, we were just talking about Adderall abuse, and I know you've never taken any.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I tried it once.
Oh, you did try it once.
Okay, I'll spill it.
Oh, here we go.
I tried it once last year in Vanguard against OpTic, which was one of my best games in a long time. I went 10-30 first map. I went to the bathroom. I started slapping myself in the face, saying, "Wake the up." I never touched it again.
And also, let me just also clear the air. The CDL drug tests. So players do get drug tested. It's just that a lot of players have prescriptions now. But the league does drug test. If you don't have a prescription and you're taking that, you are in trouble. Why are they speculating about who takes it? Nero does not take it. I can only speak for when I was in the team. He's just naturally cracked.
So Joke actually goes in and finds this. So this was the series Boston 3, Texas 2 from last year, when it was Dashy, Scump, Prelude, and Shotzzy in the roster. And this was game 1 on Gavutu Hardpoint, when Methodz goes 11-25. So pretty close to what he was saying. This, it seems, was that particular series. And as we saw from Methodz, he hasn't used it since, or he didn't use it before, but he tried it for that series. I guess he was in a bit of a slump of form, and he thought maybe this would get me out of it, because that is the consensus. And, you know, clearly not the case. And he decided to change tack significantly going forward from there. But he also mentioned, right, the number of players with prescriptions. That was the other thing that Hitch said, is that after every series in the CDL, apparently, they will take someone aside. This is, of course, on LAN, and this is where the issues arise. They'll take someone aside, do a quick test for one of the random players out of the 8 in the lobby, and, you know, then if they get caught with it, then unlucky. However, if you've got a prescription, it's obviously all good. And this is the thing, I'm not so familiar with it in the UK, because it's not as commonly used, I would say, say, anywhere near here in the UK than it is in the US. And I'm not so familiar if in the UK it's so easy to just finesse a prescription, because I believe Clayster, diagnosed with ADHD, he's had an Adderall prescription for a very long period of time to treat that issue. However, you know, I know that people have said in the past that it's super easy just to finesse a prescription even if you don't have it. Like, you know, basically it doesn't take too much attempts to actually get this to work. I don't know if Methodz is diagnosed with anything like this that he needs the prescription for, or whether he's just been able to get one without too much difficulty. Like, that's the discussion here, right? So this is the issue, that certain pros on LAN, like, they do apparently drug tests for it, but like all you've got to do is get a prescription, however easy that is to accomplish, and then there's no problems, right? So this is where what they're getting at here is like, look, let's change the narrative around it rather than trying to stop people using it by like enforcing it, because it's pretty difficult to enforce. And obviously online, that's the other issue. This game that was played there by Zin was, I'm guessing, an online league match, and the drug test guys from the CDL aren't just going to come to your house and check it out like between matches, right? Like, obviously online there really is no way to stop this going on. So it's very interesting, and as Jacob says, the idea that it just makes everyone better at the game with no downside is one of the biggest misconceptions out there. JP says this is absolutely true, of course, from the OpTic side. I don't really know what's going on in their camp. And obviously Sasha goes on to say as well, Sasha, the absolute anti-Adderall activist of the CDL for the last several years, but he disagrees a bit with what Jacob says. And like, well, look, there's a lot of people who took it their entire career, and it certainly doesn't make some of these people who took it their entire career worse. And Jacob's like, well, look, what about all the people who took it for a long period of time and then stopped because they realized it wasn't helping them? Which, you know, there are some of those people. Obviously Huke is one of them, who took it for years, it seems, and then made the decision during the Cold War season to get off it and felt way better in and out of the game. And obviously right at the start of that Cold War season was like the best player in the world in Stage 1 that year, after he was clean for seemingly the first time. And Sasha went on to say, yeah, okay, small minority of players like that, but it doesn't help legit 100% of people. But you know damn well it helped a lot of people, especially in old style events. 9 AM to 9 PM on a Monster or Adderall seems pretty obvious to me which is better. This is quite an interesting statement from Sasha, saying that nowadays it's less relevant than it was back in the day. And I guess you can understand why. Those old school events where you'd be playing like, you know, 5-6 matches a day, going on a crazy losers bracket run, like those are the games where the Adderall can come into its own, I guess you could say. Like, and look, a lot of players will just take caffeine, which is understandable, but you know, some are still on this stuff. Whether they should be or not is a debate to be had. The CDL is, as we say, trying to clamp down. Methodz says that, yeah, they do test for it, but realistically, the prescription stuff makes it pretty difficult to actually see, okay, has he got a prescription legitimately? Has he not? And, you know, it's pretty much impossible to actually figure out the best way around this. And Jacob says, well, look, those events don't exist anymore, and especially one match a day now, so there would be, and Sasha's like, well, look, there's probably no need for it, right, as a result. So hopefully that is the case. Hopefully more pros come to this realization. And I thought this is funny for Marky B as well. So, you know, they do test apparently. If Man says, imagine if the league tested, half the league would be out, which is true, probably, if the prescription situation didn't occur. And Marky B then says, I got tested after I won my Fortress control attack. They doubted my power, which I thought was pretty funny, to be fair. But yeah, we're going to leave it there for now. Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Just wanted to close out with this from Activision, which is potentially a tweet that is good and bad. They are celebrating the fact that a COD League had what they say is the second most viewed event in COD Esports history. I think by the numbers, by peak viewership, it might have been #1 ever. But I guess they're looking at hours watched, which is their stat that they love to take to advertisers or to potential new platforms, right? And this is the thing about this tweet, that they're like, oh yeah, thanks to the fans, what a fantastic event we had. Now let's go back to YouTube, right? And it does almost feel like an advertising tweet to YouTube to say, hey, these are the numbers we just got over there on Twitch. How much do you want to pay us for our 5 million hours watched? Like, not a viewership metric that the fans really look at, but a viewership metric that YouTube or potential other platforms would be very interested in. So just want to keep in mind, potentially good and bad. Enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.